The roar of the crowd, the flash of cameras, and the aura of dominance made Ronda Rousey a once-in-a-generation athlete. Rising from personal tragedy and a childhood marked by obstacles, she transformed pain into power, becoming the first American woman to win an Olympic medal in judo before revolutionizing mixed martial arts. With lightning-fast arm bars and unmatched confidence, Rousey shattered barriers, headlined UFC events, and redefined what women could achieve in combat sports. Yet behind the glory was a story far more complex, a tale of control, pressure, and resilience that ultimately shaped her remarkable, controversial, and unforgettable legacy. The rise of a phenomenon. The roar of the crowd, the flashing lights, and the aura of invincibility defined Ronda Rousey's reign as the queen of the UFC. She wasn't just another fighter, she was a phenomenon. A woman who entered the cage with the aura of inevitability, ending matches before opponents even realized what had hit them. Her victories were swift, brutal, and spectacular. Armbars that snapped careers in seconds, knockouts that silenced arenas, and performances that turned fight nights into cultural moments. To the public, she was unstoppable. But behind the cameras and highlight reels was a different, hidden story that reveals how success in a billion-dollar sport often comes at a personal cost. A childhood shaped by grit and loss. Rousey's journey didn't begin in privilege. Born in Riverside, California, toughness was ingrained in her family's DNA. Her mother, Anne Maria DeMars, was the first American woman ever to win a world judo championship. That example of grit and determination became the foundation of Ronda's life, instilling in her a discipline that would later fuel her dominance. But tragedy struck early. When Ronda was only 8 years old, her father, Ron Rousey, died by suicide after a long struggle with chronic back pain. The loss left deep scars. It gave her both resilience and an edge, shaping the relentless drive that defined her career. At the same time, it planted in her an inner battle that would follow her for decades. Finding strength in judo growing up, Rousey faced challenges that could have easily derailed her. A speech impediment made communication difficult, leaving her feeling like an outsider during much of her childhood. But where others saw weakness, she saw fuel. Judo became her refuge, her escape, and her weapon. Hours in grueling training sessions turned into tournaments, then championships, and eventually global recognition. By her late teens, she was competing at the highest levels, not as a participant, but as a threat. The breakthrough came in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics, where she captured bronze, the first American woman to ever medal in Olympic judo. For most athletes, this would have been the crowning achievement of a career. For Ronda, it was only the beginning of something bigger. Entering MMA. A storm arrives. When Rousey transitioned into mixed martial arts, the sport had no idea what was coming. She wasn't just good, she was terrifying. In Strikeforce, she ran through her opponents like a wrecking ball. Her signature armbar became a weapon opponents knew was coming but couldn't stop. Victories lasted seconds, not rounds, and fans quickly realized they were witnessing something new. She had the look, the swagger, and the aura of inevitability. She wasn't just another fighter, she was the fighter promoters dream about and opponents dread. Breaking barriers in the UFC for years, UFC President Dana White swore that women would never fight in the promotion. Then Ronda Rousey came along. In 2012, she signed with the UFC, making history as its first female fighter and its first female champion. Overnight, she became the face of women's MMA. Her debut in 2013 was everything fans expected. Another blistering armbar finish, another first-round win, another moment that fueled the legend. From there, her run became historic. 12 straight victories, most of them finished in under a minute. Pay-per-view numbers skyrocketed, sponsors lined up, and Rousey became a household name. She wasn't just dominating the sport, she was reshaping it, becoming a cultural icon. As her fame grew, Rousey became more than an athlete. She became a cultural figure. Magazine covers, late-night talk shows, appearances in Hollywood films, all followed. She was cast in movies like The Expendables 3 and Furious 7, crossing over into mainstream entertainment in ways no female fighter had before. She was a role model, a symbol of female empowerment, and the face of a revolution. Yet the higher she climbed, the more the pressures of stardom and corporate control began to weigh on her. The demands behind the curtain. To the outside world, Rousey was the fearless champion. Inside the UFC machine, she was a carefully managed product. Every interview was scripted, every photo shoot meticulously planned, and every fight announcement tied to sponsorship deals. The physical demands of the sport were punishing enough. Years of judo had already left her body battered, and the transition to MMA only intensified the strain. Torn ligaments, nagging injuries, and concussions began to pile up. But the UFC juggernaut never slowed down. She was expected to fight, to promote, to smile, and to sell pay-per-views no matter the toll. Growing frustration with the UFC friends and training partners noticed the change. Rousey became more guarded, less willing to play the role of smiling poster child. Conversations about her frustrations with UFC executives began to surface. Whispers of sponsorship disputes, disagreements over fight schedules, and clashes about her public image circulated backstage. According to those close to her, there was an unwritten rule: fall in line with corporate expectations, or risk being sidelined. For years, Rousey complied just enough to keep the machine running, but the more she resisted, the more friction grew. The breaking point. By late 2016, the tension reached a breaking point. Reports suggested Rousey confronted Dana White directly, refusing to act as a mouthpiece for brands she didn't support. His alleged response was blunt: "In the UFC, you're either all in or you're out." The message was clear: comply or be cast aside. When Rousey returned to face Amanda Nunes at UFC 207, the cracks were already visible. The UFC billed it as her redemption arc, but insiders claimed the promotion had already moved on. Marketing materials heavily featured Nunes, a stark shift from Rousey's previous dominance of the spotlight. Even her walkout reportedly involved behind-the-scenes disputes over which sponsors would appear. The fall against Amanda Nunes. The fight itself was devastating. Amanda Nunes overwhelmed Rousey in just 48 seconds, delivering a loss that shocked the MMA world. But what stood out most wasn't the defeat. It was the UFC's reaction. Instead of protecting their star, the promotional machine highlighted her downfall. Commentators spoke of the end of her reign, and the UFC pivoted almost overnight to its new champion. For Rousey, the message was undeniable. She was no longer essential to the UFC's plans. A silent exit in the months that followed. Offers for new fights came with conditions. Contracts were laced with sponsorship obligations, scripted interviews, and restrictions that went beyond the cage. Training resources were delayed, media access redirected, and promotional shoots cancelled. To Rousey, it felt like a campaign of soft pressure, designed to break her will without ever putting demands in writing. The final straw came when she was told her next fight, if she wanted one, would be buried on a card beneath fighters she had once headlined over. To her, it was a deliberate humiliation. By early 2017, she was gone. No dramatic retirement press conference, no farewell fight, just a quiet exit. Pulling back the curtain. For years, Rousey deflected questions with vague answers about wanting new challenges. But eventually, she spoke openly. In a candid interview, she revealed what she saw as the darker side of the UFC. According to her, the organization operated on a system of compliance and silence. Fighters who aligned with corporate interests were rewarded with favorable matchups, better pay-per-view cuts, and media protection. Those who resisted were quietly punished, rankings manipulated, opportunities withheld, and reputations damaged through leaks to the press. Allegations of fighter pressure. Perhaps the most explosive part of her revelation centered on fighter safety. Rousey alleged that the UFC pressured fighters, including herself, to downplay or hide serious injuries to keep main events intact. She claimed she was told that pulling out of a fight would cause irreparable damage to her standing, regardless of the medical risks. For her, it wasn't just unethical, it was dangerous. Her comments sent shockwaves through the MMA community. Some fighters cautiously supported her claims, while others remained silent, fearing repercussions. After the UFC, WWE, and Hollywood, after leaving MMA, Rousey reinvented herself in WWE, where her charisma and star power once again drew mainstream attention. She captured championships, headlined WrestleMania, and further cemented her status as a trailblazer. Hollywood roles followed, ensuring she remained in the public eye. But no matter how successful she became outside the octagon, the shadow of her UFC exit lingered. Legacy: a fighter and a rebel. To some, Ronda Rousey will forever be the unstoppable force who shattered barriers, forcing Dana White and the UFC to embrace women's fighting, and proving that women could headline the biggest stages. To others, she is remembered as a champion who couldn't handle the sting of defeat, her fall as dramatic as her rise. But her legacy cannot be boxed into either narrative. She was both a trailblazer and a rebel, an icon who conquered the sport and then challenged the very system that built her. In doing so, Rousey left behind a legacy far larger than wins or losses. Conclusion: Ronda Rousey's story is one of brilliance and burden, triumph and turmoil. She rose from hardship to become a global icon, reshaping MMA and proving that women belonged at the top of combat sports. Yet her fall revealed the ruthless machinery behind the spectacle, where control often outweighed compassion. By walking away, Rousey didn't surrender. She reclaimed her freedom. Her legacy is etched not only in victories, but also in the courage to expose uncomfortable truths. Years later, the question remains: was she merely a champion, or the fighter who revealed the true cost of greatness?